really shouldn't have came to no surprise, but as Kirk mentioned a few weeks ago on his show, the Consistency podcast is scripted. It takes me about a day or two to write my monologue out. I then edit it and practice it before I record. And the reason why I do that is because I do this as a hobby. I'm not a professional, and I don't have the ability to talk off the cuff for 15 to 20 minutes. So I write things down because I want to make sure that what I have to say is genuine, even if a majority of people don't like it. But the one thing that I want to talk about today is far different, and that's these two words, make-believe. First, let's talk about Mick's latest Rico Bosco moment in the studio before storming out, which should be considered make-believe. Mick leaves minutes after arriving as if he remembered that he kept his car running outside. This seemed premeditated to keep this will he be or won't he be producer conversation alive. I'm not sure many people bought the act, which is really kind of growing thin at this point, especially as the conversation between the guys in the studio was rather tamed. It was innocuous. They weren't yelling. And yet Mick storms out. It just seemed kind of make-believe to me. But there was one person who bought Mick's act and continues to buy everything Mick says, alleges, and does. And that's Kirk, who is viciously loyal to Mick and has had his back with every make-believe thought or argument Mick has had when it came to his disagreements with Gus, Coleman, Mutt, and now Justin, and to a lesser extent, Blind Mike. How is this possible? Tell me how. Mick essentially has kicked Kirk square in the nuts 3 times in the last year. He walked out of the studio twice. One time he was a producer of the show, which was really bad. And he also quit on the basketball team. Most people would be gone from the world, yet Kirk is still enamored with Mick. I don't get it. And on top of it now, Kirk said last week he still has a project in mind for Mick. What? Is this make-believe? I mean, what's going on here? Think about it. Cullinane was shown the door for half-assing a live event. Coleman was fired because of a lot of small things that he did wrong, but I guess it was because he overslept the morning of the Canby Lake Park event. And a lot of the third chairs aren't asked back for doing or saying one stupid thing. And here is Mick, who has done far worse, and he still may get a job? And how is this not make-believe? Kirk has this mantra where he preaches and demands loyalty of his employees, the people in the studio, and his fans. But he lets Mick slide over and over and over. I don't get it. Do as I say, not as I do should be Kirk's new theme. He's become Mr. Softy. And when the chips are down, what does Kirk see in Mick that many of us are missing? Don't get me wrong, I'm a Mick maniac. I listen to Beyond Average. I like the kid. I met him in Portland. He's really, really a nice guy, and I enjoy him in the studio when he's calm. But he's no Blind Mike in the second or third chair, and he's definitely not Steve Robinson behind the glass. So what is Kirk seeing? What's this infatuation about? I don't think any of us will get this. And on top of it, Mick said he'll never be back in the studio. So why does Kirk keep on feeding us this idea that he's coming back if the kid don't want to come back? So I think it's time for Kirk to accept that Mick won't be back in the studio, put an end to this thing, and move on. It's time. And if I'm Justin or John from Scranton, I'd walk out during the show. Justin wants a raise, walk out. John wants to produce this job, walk out. Because what they'll be doing is they'll be painting Kirk into a corner. because he's going to have to give them what they want, right? I mean, he's going to give Mick a job allegedly, and the kids walked out of the studio twice. So he's going to have to do what Justin and John would want. I mean, he's going to have to, because the rules need to be the same for everyone, not just for a majority of the people, and Mick gets his own set of rules. Doesn't work that way. If not, then more and more people will consider this show nothing but make-believe. Speaking of Justin, he definitely did more than he should have the morning of Candy Lake Park. The failure of that morning is 100% on Coleman. He wasn't professional. He should have been awake and ready to go. And for that day to go on without him was a total failure by Coleman. And, he definitely deserves 100% of the blame. And I think this might be a teachable moment here, because I didn't hear this part on the show. But one of my many jobs involves delivering packages to apartments and apartment complexes. And most apartment buildings have double doors. The front doors are usually unlocked, and there's a directory listing of each resident and their associated apartment number in the foyer. Sometimes it's written and there's a little button that you can press, or sometimes it's this big elaborate electronic system. And if it's a complex, there's usually a group of mailboxes that have the person's name and apartment number when you enter the complex itself. And if an apartment building doesn't have a double door, there's usually a call box near the front door where you can look up the resident's information. I do this all the time, multiple times a day. It's something that I've gotten used to, and maybe something Justin wasn't aware of. Justin could have easily looked up this information and could have rang Coleman's apartment to see if he answers. Unfortunately, a lot of these systems are tied into a person's cell phone, and with Coleman's cell phone shut off, it probably was going to go to voicemail. But Justin would have had the apartment information, so he could have waited for someone to leave before he could have entered the apartment area, and he could have went to Coleman's door and knocked on it. He obviously would have left if Coleman didn't answer, but that is probably the next step that I would have done. And again, Justin may not have been aware of this because, like I said, I do this for a living, so I know how to get a hold of people who live in apartments a lot, because I need signatures for packages sometimes. My guess is that if Justin was aware of this, he would have done this and tried to get a hold of Coleman. But when I really think about this, my guess is that Jeff Dishonest Lowe made Justin leave. Justin's way too good of a person who would not have thrown Coleman under the bus. There's no way that would have happened. Coleman had every chance to go with Justin, because Justin went back to the studio and waited. To me, this all boiled down to Jeff, who's an egomaniac, who thinks this entire show is make-believe, and I'll get to that in a second. So he got Justin to leave in order to make himself look good, without a single care or thought about the potential fallout of Coleman not going to Canby Lake. And what happened? Coleman gets suspended, then he gets whacked, and as you can tell by his call on Friday, he's definitely still sour at Jeff for sticking his nose where it didn't belong, and I hope Coleman stays mad at him, because Coleman probably wouldn't have gotten whacked if Jeff didn't get involved. At last check, this is the Kirk Minahan show, not the Jeff D. Lowe show. So who is Jeff to play God in that spot? But this is Jeff 101. Dave Portnoy said it best. Jeff is a gossip who stirs the pot at other people's expense. He did it to me in Portland, jumping on the false accusations others made about me breaking a coat of a mare to the Kirk, which 100% did not happen. On my eyes, I did not tell anybody. But here was Jeff accusing me on air of running around the Westin bar, telling everybody who I was talking to what was going on. For the record, before the show that night in Portland, I was at the Westin bar standing next to Jeff, Mutt, Cullinane, and Casey Smith the entire time. I was talking to them about the game. Casey and I were talking about Barstool. And I was buying people drinks. I also met and had excellent conversations with Red, Ziggy, the Drips, Tom Shattuck, and Tim and Canton. There was no running around. I wasn't telling everybody what was going on. It was fake news low stirring the pot. So when I heard this, I DM'd Jeff, and I said to him, I 1000% did not say anything. Jeff responds, I know, I don't actually know if you said anything, but we are in a world of make-believe, so we gotta play up the story. And anybody can DM me if you want proof of this exchange. I'll be glad to send it to you. There you have it. Jeff D. Lowe thinks the KMS World is make-believe. Kirk's show and his career, make-believe. The producers, guests, storylines, fans, the studio, and everything Kirk Minahan show related, the network, the merchandise, everything is make-believe. We might as well change the name of the show from the Kirk Minahan Show to the Make-Believe Show. After all, everything about this show isn't real. Jeff said as much to me. And it's too bad because I really thought highly of Jeff before that DM, and I still think he's a good guy. But, you know, it just bothers me because he was a very nice person to talk to in Portland, and, you know, he gave me some great advice when Kirk and I headed out earlier in the year. You know, Jeff, Big Cat, Casey, and a few other people from Barstool did the same. They were great to talk to. They listened, they understood, and they gave good advice. And I definitely needed it at the time because I never had Kirk be so furious at me the way he was, and I didn't know how to handle it. So I appreciated what they told me. I appreciated the feedback. But I didn't know that Jeff was just being nice to me in a fake way behind the scenes, only to knife me in the back in public. And I was fine with it. I got over being whacked from the show. But when he did the same thing to Coleman, it kind of got me a little upset because, you know, I remain loyal to Coleman. I'm loyal to Justin. I'm loyal to the producers. They're both good guys. And, you know, Jeff threw Coleman under the bus because to him, this is only make-believe. And I got to tell you guys, Jeff D. Lowe is being dishonest with you. But, you know, you guys keep on pumping his tires on how good he is with the Barstool shows. And, you know, you guys are treating him as if he held hands with Jesus when our Lord and Savior walked on water. But I don't know. Deep down, I think this whole thing is make-believe to him. You know, he's Jeff Dishonest Lowe, and it's time for you guys to realize what Portnoy said about him is correct. And it's only a matter of time before he helps whack someone else from the show. So be careful around him because he thinks this whole thing is make-believe. And it's not fair to the Minifans, and it's not fair to Kirk. You know, and like I said, if you want proof, let me know and I'll send it. Speaking of Portnoy, I hope the offer that he made to Mutt about the Travers and Saratoga is the start of something excellent for Mutt in the Barstool world because he really deserves a chance. And, you know, you guys don't think WEEI regrets getting rid of him? I mean, look at the latest on-air shakeup on that station. I'm willing to bet that Mutt and a co-host of his choosing would outperform the new combos of Adam Jones and Rich Keefe, Andy Hart, and Christian Arcand. Much just better than them. And he's far and away the talent that Andy Grush, Christian Fourier, and Megan Onellini were. I mean, all three of them had zero business being on the radio. Mutt at Night was a must-listen. His opening theme song, Night Train by Guns N' Roses, instantly got you fired up. And he delivered great points the entire show. He's a talented radio host, podcaster, and writer who deserves a chance at Barstool. And I hope Portnoy gives that to him. And I do believe Kirk's offer to Mutt to be a producer was genuine. But do you guys really believe that Kirk was going to be okay allowing Mutt to be a part-time producer? And, Kirk said last week that it was okay if Mutt only worked the 3 shows. I don't know. That part seemed a little make-believe to me. My guess is that Mutt's Italian intuition kicked in and he realized that working for Kirk was going to be a failure. And I don't think he would have made it to Thanksgiving if he accepted this job. So I think Mutt made a good decision here. But let's look ahead. What if Mutt actually did get a job at Barstool? I think it's going to work out if this happens because Portnoy's a very hands-off boss. He has hundreds of employees and a lot of responsibilities being the CEO. In a couple of months, I don't even think he's going to remember that he hired Mutt, which will allow Mutt to write his blogs, do some horse racing and sports betting videos, jump on a couple of Barstool shows, and completely flying under the radar while making more money than Kirk would offer him. So it's a great thing for Mutt. And in this economy, having extra money in your pocket is a good thing. And if anybody has any ideas on how to make extra money, please let me know because I think we all could use extra money today. As for the second producer search, hopefully one of these guys coming in to produce over the next couple of weeks will pan out. My feeling is that Kirk is working on hiring somebody we aren't thinking of to be the new producer. I think it's going to be a big name. Because the Skip is tired of this revolving door of producers, and my guess is that there is this massive surprise up his sleeve that will make us all happy and finally put an end to this producer search nonsense that jumped the shark months ago. So hopefully we can get someone in there with Justin who's talented and we can just move on. And, my hope is that it's John from Scranton. I really like John. He's a good kid. And I really hope Kirk would take him serious and, give him a chance to be the producer. Moving on, I fully expected Cinema Lords to not accept the offer to play me 101. There was no surprise, as the one-sided rivalry he had with me was totally make-believe. Again, I don't have an issue with this kid. I like him. I think he was great in studio on Friday with John from Warren. I enjoy his podcast, and I hope he keeps it up, as it's a good listen. And his upcoming episode where they are drafting school movies seems like a good idea. It's pretty cool, and, hopefully Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Lean on Me, and Back to School are selected as they are signature school movies. And finally, I'm not sure about you guys, but this Andy Mayo return is another example of make-believe. I cannot believe Mayo is back in studio. I just have that throw-up feeling in my mouth. It's just, gross. This clown Mayo, who once wished death on me in the studio, who asked Portnoy a stupid question about The Prince's Bride, and who burped into a microphone the last time he was in, is still allowed back, even though Kirk said he was done with him. So, what was this? Make believe that he was done with Mayo? I mean, just so sad that he's coming back. And hopefully, many of us don't break our fingers hitting the 30-second button forward once we hear Mayo and his make-believe act. And trust me, everything he does is an act. Him, when the red light is on, is totally different than the Mayo when the red light is on. So, red light Mayo and no red light Mayo, two different people. Don't buy into his act. But Kirk loves to torture himself. So hopefully he and all of us can make it through this episode without needing to call BetterHelp, because Mayo can definitely bring a guy to calling that service. And with that said, this episode of the Consistency Podcast comes to a close. Stay well, be good to the ones you love,